Thank you for joining us on This Is Exclusive. It's 7 p.m. I'm Niranjan, and let's get you the news summarized first up with Note Assist using Galaxy AI on Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 6. Prime Minister targets the Aam Aadmi Party ahead of election, says he doesn't build Sheesh Mahal. He does development, unlike what the Aam Aadmi Party does. Sounding the poll bugle in the national capital ahead of the elections, Prime Minister phrases a new term, calls the Aam Aadmi Party Aapda. 40 years after the Bhopal gas tragedy, as the toxic waste is moved, there are protests. People have tried to immolate themselves. We have an exclusive report on the show this evening. And a story that we've been reporting here on Republic TV for the last few days and weeks. India has cautioned China on the big Brahmaputra Dam, touted to be the world's largest infrastructure project. New Delhi taking note. Starting with the Bhopal gas tragedy, ladies and gentlemen, 40 years after what is one of the world's biggest industrial disasters, as the toxic waste is finally moved out 4 decades later, the Madhya Pradesh government plan to dispose the 337 tons of waste left after the massive 1984 Bhopal gas tragedy, protests have broken out. We had pictures that came in earlier, pictures of people trying to immolate themselves as the toxic waste was being moved from Bhopal to Pithampur. And these are the pictures that came in earlier of people attempting self-immolation. 4 years on, 4 decades on, there are still concerns over the Bhopal gas tragedy and the toxic waste. In fact, it's been lying in Bhopal for almost 4 decades now, and the place where it's been lying, there's largely been no incidents or illnesses reported. But in the minds of people, there is still a concern, a sense of fear. And these are shots of the protests that came in earlier today as people protested the toxic waste being moved from Bhopal to Pithampur. This is 40 years after the Bhopal gas tragedy. 377 tons of hazardous waste that has been moved from the Union Carbide factory for disposal, transported in 12 sealed trucks. It journeyed from Pithampur to Pithampur with health checks for workers and a court deadline, of course, which was set for the removal of that. Abhishek is joining me live, my colleague. Abhishek, in fact, Abhishek, why were these protests being held? Why is there still a sense of fear or concern among people?
Well, the reason why there is a sense of fear and concern amongst people is because of the scale of the tragedy that had struck Bhopal 40 years back. Niranjan, methyl isocyanate and traces of that gas still present in this toxic waste. That's the reason why it's hazardous. This is a court-monitored process. This is being closely supervised by the topmost court of the country. There are instructions, there are scientific processes that are being followed. In fact, the entire process is being carried out by scientists under the overall guidance or the monitoring of the Supreme Court, with the administration, of course, facilitating the logistics part. Where the mistake has happened is perhaps the government failed to communicate properly. The government failed to tell people that their concerns have been taken into account, that this is a scientific process, this is the court-monitored process. All of their fears are taken care of in the manner in which the waste is being disposed. But obviously there was some communication gap, because of which these apprehensions, these fears, and perhaps fanned by some vested interests, have got these people out on the streets with the protests, demonstrations, and Bandh that was declared in the town and the district, and it really got escalated with that episode of self-immolation earlier in the day. It's unfortunate, and the entire blame insofar as managing this particular situation today is concerned should rest with the local administration for having not anticipated it and not acted in a manner that people's concerns were taken care of, Niranjan.
I have a breaking news update coming in, Abhishek. I want you to stay with me. We had, details coming in that a delegation is set to meet stakeholders, the local representatives. The Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh had instructed Kailash Vijayvargiya, senior BJP leader, to visit some of these places and speak to people. To explain, let's take out the plate. Okay, I'm going across, some of the text was incomplete there. Apologize for that. Abhishek, so the state government, of course, they have a timeline to adhere to, right? How are they reaching out? Because I just read a few articles, Abhishek. There is an attempt to try and call this a farce. The Western media, of course, is trying to question this exercise once again. The Western media coverage of this has been completely negative, as most Western media articles are about India. But they are talking about how this is a farce, this is a sham, and how it's a cover-up.
Well, you see, this whole tragedy panned out because the West was absolutely careless, callous, and lackadaisical towards safety measures when it came to their plants, manufacturing, machinery, industry, etc., in the then third world that India used to be. And, the unfortunate manner in which the whole thing really panned out, West has to take equal responsibility for it, if at all. But coming to the present, Niranjan, I think there is a massive communication failure we are seeing in the manner in which the whole thing has really panned out over the last 24 hours. The Chief Minister is from that belt. Remember, Mohan Yadav comes from Ujjain, Dhar belt, Indore, and there should have been better communication mechanism. We are told he had asked Kailash Vijayvargiya, another senior BJP leader, again from the same belt from Indore, to be camping there, to go there. Perhaps he did not reach on time or did not reach at all. But that's really the responsibility of the government to have been proactive, which I think they were not, and that's really led to the situation we are seeing in the pictures coming out of Pithampur since morning.